The stars disappeared one by one. At first, people thought it was clouds moving across the night sky. But there were no clouds. Something else was blocking the light. Something massive. Something alive. High. Commander Zorvax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devourer of Worlds. He looked down at the small blue planet below him. Earth. Such a tiny thing. Such a fragile thing. His fleet of 300 warships hung in orbit like a dark blanket covering the sky. Each ship was grown, not built. They were living creatures, bred for war over thousands of years. Their hulls were made of bone and metal fused together. Their weapons were organic cannons that fired plasma hot enough to melt mountains. The Valanther Dominion had conquered 17 star systems. Zorvax himself had led the destruction of 6 intelligent species. Some had been more advanced than humans. Some had begged for mercy. Some had tried to fight. None of them existed anymore. Their worlds were now mining colonies. Their people were dust and memory. Zorvax pressed a button on his command chair. His voice would now reach every communication device on the planet below. "People of Earth," he said. His voice was deep and cold. "I am High Commander Zorvax of the Valanther Dominion. Your planet now belongs to us. You have 72 hours to surrender. Lay down your weapons. Kneel before our ships. Accept your place as servants of the Dominion. If you do this, some of you will be allowed to live." He paused. He enjoyed this part. He had given this speech many times before. "If you refuse, we will burn your cities to ash. We will poison your oceans. We will hunt every last one of you until your species is nothing but a forgotten mistake in the history of the galaxy. You have 72 hours. Choose wisely." He ended the transmission and smiled. His officers smiled too. This was routine for them. In 3 days, Earth would surrender. They always did. Down on Earth, the world was in chaos. The transmission had reached every phone, every television, every radio. People ran through the streets screaming. Traffic jammed every highway as families tried to flee the cities. Governments called emergency meetings. Military bases went on high alert. But what could they do? The enemy had hundreds of ships. Earth had never even sent humans beyond the moon. In Geneva, Switzerland, the leaders of every nation gathered in a massive underground bunker. Presidents and prime ministers sat around a long table. Their faces were pale. Their hands were shaking. On the screens around them, they could see the alien fleet. The ships were enormous. Each one was larger than an aircraft carrier. They pulsed with a sickly green light, like diseased hearts beating in the darkness of space. "We cannot fight them," said the president of France. "Look at those ships. We have nothing that can even scratch them." "Then we surrender," said another leader. "We save what lives we can and become slaves?" The voice came from the back of the room. Everyone turned to look. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked forward. She was 53 years old. Her hair was gray at the temples. Her eyes were hard as steel. She had spent her life negotiating peace treaties and trade agreements. But there would be no negotiating with these creatures. "I have read the reports," she said. "Our satellites have been watching them for hours. These Valanther do not take slaves. They take resources. The species they have conquered are gone. Completely gone. Surrender means death. It just means a slower death." The room went silent. "Then, what do you suggest?" asked the Prime Minister of Japan. "We cannot win. Our weapons are toys compared to theirs." Elena looked at the screen. The alien ships seemed to stare back at her. "There is another option," she said quietly. "Something that was never supposed to be used. Something that most of you do not even know exists." She pulled a small device from her pocket and placed it on the table. It projected a hologram into the air. The hologram showed a network of underground facilities spread across every continent. There were hundreds of them. Project Prometheus, Elena said. It was started 60 years ago, after we first detected radio signals from deep space. Signals that were not natural. Our governments knew that someday something might come. So we prepared, in secret, using black budgets and hidden laboratories. The leaders stared at the hologram. They had never heard of this project. What is it? Asked the President of the United States. What did we build? Elena turned off the hologram. Her face was grim. We built weapons, she said. Terrible weapons. Things that should never have been created. Things that could end not just a war, but a species. We built them because we knew that if something came from the stars, it would not come in peace. The universe is not kind. The universe is not fair. The universe is a dark forest where every civilization is a hunter and every other civilization is prey. She looked around the vase room at the frightened faces of the world's most powerful people. These Valanthar think they know us. They have watched our television broadcasts. They have studied our wars, our crimes, our failures. They think we are weak. They think we are divided. They think we will break. Elena's voice grew harder. They are wrong. They have made a terrible mistake. They looked at our history of violence and saw weakness. They should have seen warning signs. Humanity has spent its entire existence fighting. We have fought each other. We have fought nature. We have fought death itself. We do not surrender. We do not kneel. We survive. That is what we do. That is what we have always done. She placed her hands on the table and leaned forward. We have 72 hours. That is enough time. When those ships come down to burn our cities, they will learn something that no other species has ever taught them. The room was silent. Every eye was on her. They will learn, Elena said slowly, that humanity is not prey. We are the monster that other monsters should fear. And when this is over, when the last of their ships is burning in our atmosphere, we will send a message to whatever empire sent them here. She straightened up and looked at the ceiling, as if she could see through it to the alien fleet above. We will teach the galaxy to fear the name of Earth. Far above, High Commander Zorvax watched the planet in silence. His officers reported that human military forces were standing down. Their governments were meeting, but taking no action. Their people were panicking in the streets. Everything was going according to plan. He had no idea that, beneath the surface of that small blue world, something was waking up. Something that humanity had built for exactly this moment. Something that would change the galaxy forever. The countdown had begun. 48 hours had passed since the ultimatum. High Commander Zorvax sat in his command chair and stared at the planet below. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. The humans had stopped talking. For the first 2 days, Earth had been loud. Radio signals had flooded the airwaves. Television stations had broadcast non-stop coverage of the alien fleet. World leaders had made speeches. People had screamed and cried and prayed. The noise had been constant and annoying, like the buzzing of insects. But now there was only silence. Report, Zorvax commanded. His voice echoed across the bridge. His communications officer, a thin creature with 4 arms and silver eyes, turned to face him. High Commander, we are detecting no significant radio traffic from the surface. All major broadcast stations have gone dark. Government communications have switched to encrypted channels that we cannot decode. Zorvax frowned. This was unusual. In his experience, doomed species became louder as their end approached, not quieter. They begged. They pleaded. They made desperate offers of surrender. They did not go silent. What about their military? He asked. That is the strange part, Commander. Their military forces have not dispersed. They have not prepared defensive positions. Instead, they seem to be retreating, moving underground. We are detecting massive power surges at locations across the planet. Hundreds of facilities buried deep beneath the surface are drawing enormous amounts of energy. Underground facilities? What kind of facilities? The officer hesitated. We do not know, Commander. These locations do not appear on any of their public maps. They were hidden. Zorvac stood up from his chair. He walked to the massive window at the front of the bridge and looked down at Earth. The planet looked peaceful from up here. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds drifting lazily across the atmosphere. It looked like a paradise, but paradises did not hide things underground. Send scout ships, Zorvax ordered. I want to know what they are doing down there. 5 small Volanter ships descended through the atmosphere. They flew over cities that had been abandoned. Streets that had been packed with panicking crowds were now empty. Cars sat motionless on highways. Airports were silent. It was as if the entire human race had simply vanished. The scout ships approached one of the underground facilities. It was hidden beneath a mountain range in Central Asia, the only visible. Sign of its existence was a massive metal door. Built into the side of a cliff, the lead scout ship tried to scan the interior. Nothing. The walls were too thick. Whatever was inside, the humans had built it to stay secret. Then the metal door began to open. The scouts prepared their weapons. But nothing came out of the door. There was only darkness inside. Darkness and silence, and then the door closed again. What was that? The scout commander reported to Zorvax. They opened the door and then closed it. They showed us nothing. Zorvax felt a chill run down his spine. It was a feeling he had not experienced in a very long time. It was fear. They were being watched. The humans were watching them, and they wanted the Volanter to know it. Deep beneath the Ural Mountains, Dr. Yuki Tanaka wiped the sweat from her forehead and stared at the screen in front of her. She had not slept in 3 days. None of them had. There was no time for sleep. There was no time for anything except work. The facility around her was enormous. It stretched for miles underground, a maze of laboratories and factories and storage chambers. Thousands of scientists and engineers worked in shifts that never ended. They were building something that had existed only in theory until now. Project Prometheus.yuk. I had joined the project 15 years ago. Back then, she had thought it was just theoretical research. A thought experiment. What would humanity do if hostile aliens ever arrived? How would they fight back against technology that was centuries or millennia more advanced? The answer had been terrifying in its simplicity. You do not try to match their technology. You do not try to be better than them. You create something so horrible, so destructive, that no sane species would ever use it. Humanity had never been a sane species. In the laboratory behind her, massive tanks held trillions of microscopic machines, nanobots. Each one was smaller than a grain of sand. Each one was programmed with a single purpose: to consume. They were designed to eat bioorganic material, breaking it down into component atoms. They could strip a living creature to the bone in seconds. They could dissolve an entire ship in minutes, and they could reproduce. Each nanobot that consumed material used that material to build copies of itself. A single swarm could multiply into billions within hours. The Volanter had made their ships from living tissue. They had fused biology with technology. They thought this made them superior. They did not understand that it made them vulnerable. Dr. Tanaka, a voice called out. The warheads are ready. Yuki nodded. Across the facility, thousands of missiles stood in their launch tubes. They did not carry nuclear bombs. They carried something far worse. Each warhead contained a canister of nanobots, dormant and waiting to be activated. Around the world, similar facilities were completing their own preparations. Railgun platforms on the moon were being powered up. Satellites that had drifted through space for decades, disguised as debris, were receiving activation codes. Submarines carrying experimental weapons dove into the deepest trenches of the ocean, hiding themselves for the battle to come. And everywhere, people were disappearing underground. Not just soldiers and scientists, but ordinary people, families, children, the elderly. Governments had built shelters in secret, buried far beneath the surface. They could not save everyone, but they could save enough. Enough to rebuild. Enough to remember. Enough to seek revenge. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in a command center beneath the Swiss Alps. She watched the screens that showed the alien fleet still waiting in orbit. 24 hours remained until the deadline. "Are we ready?" she asked. General Morrison, the commander of Earth's Unified Defense Forces, nodded slowly. "As ready as we will ever be. When they attack, we hit them with everything. No warnings. No mercy." Elena looked at the image of the alien flagship. Somewhere on that ship, the creature called Zorvax was sitting in his chair, confident in his victory. He had done this before. He thought he knew how this story would end. He was wrong. "They think they are the hunters," Elena said quietly. "They think we are just animals waiting to be slaughtered. But they forgot something important." "What is that?" General Morrison asked. Elena smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Only cold determination. "Humans are animals too. We are predators. We have been hunting and killing since before we could walk upright. We have driven countless species to extinction. We have slaughtered each other by the millions. We are the most dangerous thing this planet has ever produced." She turned to face the general. "And now something has threatened our home, our families, our children. These Valanthar have made themselves our prey. They just do not know it yet." Far above, High Commander Zorvax watched the silent planet and wondered why he could not shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. He would find out soon enough. The deadline passed at midnight. High Commander Zorvax had waited long enough. The humans had not surrendered. They had not begged for mercy. They had gone silent and hidden underground like frightened animals. It was time to show them the price of their defiance. "All ships," Zorvax commanded, his voice cold as ice. "Begin the cleansing. Start with their largest cities. Make them watch their world burn." 300 Valanthar warships powered their weapons. Green energy gathered at the tips of their organic cannons. The glow was visible from the surface of Earth, like poisonous stars being born in the night sky. Then the firing began. New York City was hit first. A beam of plasma descended from the heavens and struck Manhattan. The heat was beyond imagination. Buildings did not burn. They evaporated. Millions of people who had not reached the shelters died instantly, turned to ash before they could even scream. The Statue of Liberty melted like a candle. The ground itself turned to glass. Tokyo was next. Then London. Then Paris. Then Beijing. Beam after beam struck the surface of Earth. Firestorms spread across continents. The smoke rose so high that it could be seen from space. Dark columns climbing toward the ships that had created them. Zorvax watched the destruction with satisfaction. This was the moment he enjoyed most. The moment when hope died. The moment when a species understood that it was truly alone in a universe that did not care about its suffering. "Sir," his sensor officer reported, "we are detecting launches from the surface." Zorvax laughed. "Let them launch their rockets. Our shields can withstand 1,000 nuclear explosions. They are wasting their final weapons on a useless gesture." Thousands of missiles rose from hidden silos across Earth. They climbed through the atmosphere and raced toward the alien fleet. Zorvax did not even bother to activate his defensive systems. Human weapons were primitive. They posed no threat. The missiles approached the fleet. The Volanther officers watched them come with bored expressions. They had seen this before. Every species tried to fight at the end. It never mattered. The warheads detonated, but there were no nuclear explosions. No fire, no shockwaves. Instead, each warhead released a cloud of gray dust that spread through space like fog rolling over a lake. "What is this?" Zorvax demanded. "What did they launch?" Before anyone could answer, the first screams began. A ship on the outer edge of the fleet started to dissolve. Its living hull, carefully grown over centuries, began to melt. The bone-like armor turned soft and then liquid. The organic systems that powered the ship died one by one. Crew members inside felt their walls turn to slime around them. They tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The gray dust was eating the ship alive. "Nanomachines!" The science officer screamed. "They have released nanomachines. They are consuming our bioorganic material." Zorvax stared in horror as the cloud spread. Ship after ship began to die. The nanobots did not care about shields. They slipped through every gap, every crack, every tiny opening. Once inside, they multiplied. They consumed. They destroyed. A cruiser broke apart in front of Zorvax's eyes. The massive vessel, home to 5,000 Volanther warriors, simply fell to pieces like a body rotting at impossible speed. The screams of its crew filled the communication channels for a few terrible seconds, and then there was silence. "How is this possible?" Zorvax whispered. "Humans do not have this technology. They are primitive. They are savages." But the savages were winning. Within 10 minutes, 50 ships had been destroyed. The gray clouds continued to spread, jumping from vessel to vessel. The Volanther fleet, which had never lost a battle, was being eaten alive by microscopic machines down on Earth. Dr. Yuki Tanaka watched the data streaming across her screens. The nanobots were working perfectly. Better than perfectly. The Volanther ships were ideal targets. Their bioorganic design, which had made them so powerful, now made them vulnerable. The nanobots treated them as food. "Phase 2, General Morrison ordered. "Hit them with everything else." On the dark side of the moon, massive doors opened in the lunar surface. Behind them sat weapons that humanity had built in secret over decades. Railguns the size of skyscrapers. Electromagnetic cannons that could accelerate projectiles to a fraction of the speed of light. They had been hidden here, waiting for an enemy that might never come. Now that enemy was here. The railguns fired. Metal rods the size of telephone poles shot through space at incredible velocity. They carried no explosives. They did not need any. At that speed, pure kinetic energy was enough. The rods punched through Volanther ships like bullets through paper. Ships that had survived the nanobots were torn apart by impacts that released more energy than nuclear bombs. Zorvax could not believe what he was seeing. His beautiful fleet, the pride of the Dominion, was being slaughtered. 100 ships were gone now. Then 150. The humans were not just fighting back. They were winning. "Retreat," he ordered, his voice breaking. "All ships retreat. Get away from this planet." But the attack continued. Satellites that had floated through Earth's orbit for years, disguised as space junk, suddenly activated. They released swarms of small drones that targeted engine systems and shield generators. The drones were fast and precise. They found weak points that the Volanther did not even know they had. Ship after ship fell silent. Some exploded. Some drifted lifelessly. Some were consumed from the inside by nanobots that had found their way aboard. The Volanther fleet, which had arrived with such arrogance, was dying. On the bridge of his flagship, Zorvax watched his officers die around him. A cloud of nanobots had breached the hull. His crew members screamed as their flesh began to dissolve. The walls of his ship, which had always felt so alive, were turning gray and soft. "This is impossible," he whispered. "We are the Volanther. We have conquered the galaxy. We do not lose to primitives." But the primitives had not read that script. Zorvax sealed himself in an escape pod and launched toward the jump point. Behind him, his flagship, the Devourer of Worlds, broke apart like a sandcastle in the tide. The ship that had destroyed 6 civilizations was gone in minutes as his pod fled through the debris field that had once been his fleet. Zorvax looked back at Earth. The blue planet floated peacefully against the stars as if nothing had happened. Smoke still rose from its burning cities. Millions of humans were dead, but humanity was not defeated. Humanity was just getting started. And somewhere on that small blue world, Ambassador Elena Vasquez looked up at the sky and smiled. "Now," she said quietly, "they know what we are." The Volanther fleet was broken, but the battle was not over. Before the retreat began, hundreds of alien soldiers had already landed on Earth. Dropships had carried them down during the initial attack, delivering ground forces to secure key locations. They had expected to find a beaten population ready to kneel. Instead, they found something very different. They found humans who refused to die in the ruins of Berlin. A Volanther squad moved through streets filled with rubble and ash. Their commander, a massive creature covered in armored scales, felt confident despite the disaster in orbit. Ground combat was different. The humans had no nanobots down here. No railguns. Just flesh and bone against Volanther warriors who had been bred for war. "Spread out," the commander ordered. "Find survivors. Kill anyone who resists." His soldiers moved into the destroyed buildings. The city was quiet. Too quiet. The fires had died down, leaving only smoke and shadows. Nothing moved. Then the shooting started. A Volanther soldier fell. A hole punched through his skull. The shot had come from a broken window 3 blocks away. Before the squad could react, 2 more soldiers dropped. Then 3 more. The humans were hidden everywhere, in basements, on rooftops, behind piles of rubble. They attacked from all directions at once. The commander roared orders, but his squad was falling apart. These were not soldiers, they were fighting. They were ordinary people. A woman with a hunting rifle. An old man with a pistol. A teenager throwing bottles filled with burning fuel. They were not trained. They were not organized. But they were angry, and they were everywhere by the time the squad retreated. Only 3 soldiers remained. The commander had taken a bullet to his shoulder. As he fled through the ruined streets, he heard something that chilled his blood. The humans were singing it was a war song, rough and defiant. It rose from the rubble like smoke, coming from 100 throats at once. The humans were not afraid. They were celebrating. They had won this small battle, and they wanted the aliens to know it. This scene repeated across the world. In Moscow, Tokyo, Cairo, São Paulo, wherever Volanther forces had landed, they met resistance. Not organized military units, but ordinary people who had decided that surrender was not an option. Teachers who had learned to make explosives from the internet. Farmers who knew how to hunt and track. Office workers who had found guns in abandoned police stations. The Volanther had never faced anything like this. The species they had conquered before had always given up when their governments surrendered. Once the leaders fell, the people followed. But humans did not work that way. Each human was their own little army, capable of deciding independently to fight to the death. General Morrison coordinated the resistance from his bunker deep underground. Reports flooded in from every continent. Human losses were heavy. For every Volanther soldier killed, Dozens of humans died. But more kept coming. More kept fighting. It was as if killing humans only made them angrier. "They are not retreating," Morrison reported to Ambassador Vasquez. "They cannot retreat. We have shot down every dropship. Their soldiers are trapped here, cut off from their fleet." Vasquez nodded. "Good. Let them feel what it is like to be hunted. Let them understand what they have awakened." In the skies above, the remnants of the Volanther fleet tried to organize a retreat. But humanity was not finished with them. Submarines that had hidden in the deepest ocean trenches surfaced and launched missiles. Fighter jets that had survived the initial attack took off from hidden airfields and engaged alien ships that were too damaged to defend themselves. And everywhere, humans broadcast messages. Not pleas for help. Not cries of despair. Music. Angry, defiant music blasted across every radio frequency. Rock songs. War chants. National anthems. The humans were jamming Volanther communications with the sound of their own rage. "High Commander, Zorvax reached the jump point with less than 90 ships. When he had arrived at Earth, he had commanded 300. Now 2/3 of his fleet floated in pieces around the blue planet. The greatest military disaster in the history of the Volanther Dominion. Commander," one of his surviving officers reported, "we are receiving a transmission from the planet." "I do not want to hear it," Zorvax growled. "Prepare the jump drives. Get us out of this cursed system." "Sir, I think you need to hear this." The officer put the transmission on the main screen. A human face appeared. It was the female who had spoken at their meetings, Vasquez. Her face was covered in dust and dried blood. Her uniform was torn. A bandage wrapped around her head. But her eyes burned with fierce light. "High Commander Zorvax," she said. "I know you are listening. I know you are running away. Look behind you. Look at what you have lost. 300 ships came to Earth. How many are leaving?" Zorvax wanted to turn off the transmission, but he could not look away. "You came here expecting to find prey," Vasquez continued. "Helpless creatures waiting to be devoured. You studied our broadcasts. You watched our wars. You saw how we fight each other, and you thought we were weak. You were wrong." She leaned closer to the camera. Blood dripped from a cut on her forehead, but she did not seem to notice. "We fight each other because we have no other enemies worth fighting. We kill each other because nothing else on this planet can challenge us. We are violent because violence is how we survived. For millions of years, we have been the top predator on our world. Every other species either serves us, fears us, or no longer exists." Behind her, humans were cheering. The sound was raw and primal, the howl of a pack that had just brought down a larger enemy. "You did not invade a civilization," Vasquez said. "You invaded a planet of killers. Congratulations. You gave us someone new to fight. Someone who actually deserves our fury." She smiled. There was no happiness in that smile. Only teeth. "Run back to your masters. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that the humans send their regards. And tell them this." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was cold as the void between stars. "We know where you came from. We are coming to find you. Not today, not tomorrow, but we are patient, and we never forget. You came to Earth looking for slaves. You have created an enemy." The transmission ended. Zorvax stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Then he gave the order to jump. The surviving ships vanished into hyperspace, fleeing from a tiny blue planet that had taught them the meaning of fear. But both sides knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. 3 days after the battle, Earth began to count its dead. The numbers were terrible. 80 million people had died in the first attack. Cities that had stood for centuries were now fields of glass and ash. New York, Tokyo, London, Paris, Beijing. Names that had meant so much were now just memories. The sky was gray with smoke that would take months to clear. The oceans were full of debris from the destroyed alien ships, but humanity had survived. People emerged from the bunkers and shelters that had saved them. They climbed out of subway tunnels and basement hideouts. They came up from mines and caves and underground parking structures. Blinking in the dim sunlight, they looked at the ruins of their world and began the work of rebuilding. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in what had once been Central Park. Now it was a crater surrounded by melted buildings. She had not slept in 4 days. Her body ached. Her heart was heavy with grief. So many people she had known were gone. Friends, colleagues, family members who had not reached shelter in time. But grief would come later. First, there was work to do. General Morrison walked up beside her. He looked as tired as she felt. His uniform was dirty and torn. A bandage covered his left hand where he had been burned by falling debris. The Volanther ground forces have been eliminated, he reported. Every single one of them. We captured some of their equipment and technology. The scientists are already studying it. Vasquez nodded slowly. And the ships? The ones we destroyed in orbit? Salvage teams are heading up now. We have tons of alien technology floating above our heads. Weapons, engines, computer systems. It will take years to understand all of it, but we will learn. We will learn everything. Vasquez looked up at the gray sky. Somewhere beyond those clouds, the pieces of 300 warships drifted in orbit. The Volanther had come to Earth to conquer. Instead, they had given humanity the keys to the stars. What about their navigation data? She asked. Morrison allowed himself a small smile. We recovered it from one of the crashed dropships. Complete star maps. Trade routes. The location of every Volanther colony and outpost. We know where they came from. We know where they live. Vasquez closed her eyes. For a moment, she saw the faces of all the people who had died. Children who would never grow up. Parents who would never see their families again. Lovers torn apart in an instant. 18 million lives erased because a race of monsters had decided that humans were nothing but prey. They will pay for this, she said quietly. Every single one of them. I do not care how long it takes. I do not care what it costs. Humanity will have its revenge. 1 week later, Earth sent its final transmission. Every broadcast station on the planet linked together. Every satellite still in orbit turned its antenna toward deep space. The message would travel outward at the speed of light, reaching every corner of the galaxy. Anyone listening would hear it. The Volanther would hear it. And they would understand. Dr. Yuki Tanaka sat in her laboratory and watched the broadcast on her screen. She had helped create the weapons that saved humanity. Now she would help build the ships that would carry humanity to the stars. The Volanther had given them a gift without meaning to. They had shown humans that the universe was dangerous. And humans had always responded to danger by becoming more dangerous themselves. The transmission began with silence. Then a voice spoke. It was not the voice of a president or a general. It was a chorus of voices. Thousands of people speaking together as one. The voice of humanity itself. This is Earth. This message is for the Volanther, Dominion, and for any other civilization listening in the darkness between the stars. The voice was calm. There was no anger in it. No rage. Just cold, absolute certainty. 7 days ago, your fleet came to our world. You burned our cities. You killed our people. You thought we would surrender. You thought we would kneel. You were wrong. In his escape pod, still limping toward Volanther space, High Commander Zorvax heard the transmission. His blood ran cold. We have destroyed your fleet. We have captured your soldiers. We have taken your technology. We know your weapons. We know your weaknesses. We know where you live." The voice continued, and Zorvax felt something he had never felt before in his 300 years of life. Terror. You thought you were the hunters. You thought you were the masters of this galaxy. You looked at our small blue world and saw easy prey. You made a mistake. Static crackled across the transmission. Then the voice returned, harder than before. "We are not prey. We are not slaves. We are not a species that surrenders. We have been fighting since we first stood upright. We have been killing since before we had names for ourselves. Violence is not something we do. It is what we are. You did not attack a civilization. You attacked a planet of predators." Across the galaxy, other species listened. Some of them had been conquered by the Volanter. Some had heard the stories and lived in fear. Now they heard something new. They heard a species that had fought back and won. "Here is our promise to you. Here is the oath we swear on the blood of our dead. We are coming for you. Not today, not tomorrow, but we are patient. We are determined. And we never forget." The voice grew louder, stronger, as more and more humans joined the chorus. "We will build ships that cross the void between stars. We will forge weapons that your empire cannot imagine. We will become stronger and faster and more deadly than anything this galaxy has ever seen. And when we are ready, we will come to your worlds. We will find your colonies. We will stand before your people and remind them of what you did to ours." The transmission was almost over now. The final words hung in the air like a knife waiting to fall. "You came to Earth and burned our home. You killed our children. You thought you could make us afraid. Instead, you have made us angry. And a human who is angry is the most dangerous thing in the universe." There was a pause. Then the last words came, spoken slowly and clearly, so that no one could mistake their meaning. "You have sealed your fate. Earth remembers. Earth endures. And Earth is coming." The transmission ended. In his pod, Zorvax sat in darkness and silence. He thought about the future. He thought about the day when human ships would appear in Volanter space. He thought about what they would do to his people. And for the first time in his long life, High Commander Zorvax, destroyer of worlds, conqueror of 17 star systems, began to pray. But deep in his hearts, he knew that no god would answer. The humans were coming, and nothing in the galaxy could stop them.